Good evening and welcome to part 4 of 2020 Visionaries, our Trad Ireland series funded by Culture Ireland. During the last few weeks, 20 leading traditional artists have shone a light on a major source of inspiration in their artistic lives, reminding us of the strength of our community past and present. We began the series with the great Donegal fiddler and singer Bhriain, and we'll conclude with a reminder of the powerful legacy of Donegal fiddler Tommy Peoples. Tonight's episode begins with a very moving tribute by Macdara Yeates to the singer Weldon as we approach the 25th anniversary of his passing in November 1995. We'd like to take this opportunity to thank all the great artists who've contributed powerful video testimonies to the series and showed such great resilience and commitment to their art. Thank you all for watching, and finally, thanks once again to Culture Ireland for funding this initiative.
I never will return to thee. Well, if he is married, I can wish him but happy. If he is drowning, God grant him rain.
I believe literally that the song sings the singer. For me, you should eschew all ego and submerge yourself in the song. Let the song sing you in that sense, you know. No one can own the art, you can't own the songs either, but if it's for some little period of your life, you and the songs possess each other.
One starry night, as I lay a-sleeping, one starry night, I lay in my bed. I dreamt I heard wagon wheels a-creaking, and when I awoke, my own love had fled. I'll search the highways, I'll search the byways, I'll search the borings and camping places too. I will inquire all from our people. Have they tied or tied in, or signs of you?
When you start traditional singing, first piece of advice you get is to start at home, you know, dig the ground beneath your feet, if you like. And for me as a Dubliner, there was always the Luke Kellys and the Ronnie Drews, you know, the rabble rousers, the foot stompers, the sort of vaudeville charm of it all. But Liam Weldon, I guess he just brought something different, something a bit more contemplative, a bit more soulful, and a bit more poetic, I think.
But now I found love, you were only lent. I'm drunk today, Lord, but oft times I am sober, a constant rover from town to town. But when I am dead low and my trumble's over, Molly Bonastory, won't you lay me down?
Hello?
How are you, Nelly? It's Dara here.
How are you, Dara?
I told you, I was saying to you yesterday I was going to ring you up and maybe ask you a few questions about Liam. Would that be alright?
Yeah?
You're not sick of talking about him at this stage, no?
No, never. He was a very, very good humoured man, you know. He used to go up and lock himself in the back bedroom and sing. And before he'd go up, he'd say to me, look, Nelly, if the Pope knocks at the door, I'm not in.
Young Cooney and Colley and Nell Martin Quinn, sure they met up together to smuggle the tin with me right sword and earning, right sword and earning, right sword and a name. Well, we walked all the day, boys, till our heels they grew raw, and we hadn't the comfort of lying in the straw. Oh, with me right sword and earning, right sword and earning, right sword and a name. Well, the hills they are high, boy, and the mare she is thin, and me heart lies a trembling for fear she'll give in. With me right sword and earning, right sword and earning, right sword and a name. Well, I'll yoke her, says Colley, I'm wide to her tricks. But the more that he yoked her, the more the mare kicked. With me right sword and earning, right sword and earning, right sword and a name. Well, I once had a piebald all covered in dots, and 'tis many's the fiver she's won in the trots. With me right sword and earning, right sword and earning, right sword and a name.
What strikes me is ultimately Liam was still quite an obscure, unknown figure. For someone of his quality, both as a singer and as a songwriter and poet, he's not exactly a household name. He didn't enjoy the commercial success that a lot of his peers did. Some of those guys went on to play in Carnegie Hall and, you know, big concert hall stages around the world. Liam ran a folk club in the Taylor's Hall in Dublin, you know. I don't think he was ever clamouring for success or for fame or anything like that, but he seems to me to be someone massively under-celebrated, an unsung hero of the Irish ballad tradition.
Make the excuse, if you leave us all go, sir, it's home we will scoot. With me right sword and earning, right sword and earning, right sword and a name.
Fame is only a bubble. You know, to superficially sort of have commercial success and all the rest of it or whatever. That's if you're following or chasing commercial success, but the songs for me are the thing.
We crossed back the border, we blessed our own fates. To hell with the black north, we're in the free state. With me right sword and earning, right sword and earning, right sword and a name.
If you look at the Irish canon in comparison to, say, the Scottish or broader British traditions, we're known for a gentler, more lyrical art form. And for someone like me, with a big booming voice, I began to wonder if there was room for someone like me. But that changed entirely when I heard Liam Weldon.
I always had a powerful voice. I learned to sing basically from the street singers, you know, people who sang out in the open and wide, just for pennies in the street, you know.
As I went down to the fair of the pine, I saw red knickers hung up for to dry.
Outlaws like Paddy Riley, no, for instance, wasn't his name, but it was the only bloody song you knew, you know. Paddy Riley. and Bally James stuff. And these times, this would be the 40s, you know, very depressed times in Dublin. You'd be lucky if you got a few pennies, you know. But the old ladies looking out of the windows at the top of the tenements. It's like, go on, Paddy, there's an old penny for you, you know. And they're going along the gutter picking them up. God bless you, mum, you know. If I got my voice back in for the world of chance of myself. Although I don't know what windows you'd sing up to. All these red bigs around the liberties now, I think it's full of the yuppies. I couldn't imagine them getting away from those stereos to throw money to a street singer, you know, unless it became the in thing. And Bono or some of these fellas were doing it.
Give it to your ma, and if she doesn't like it, then try your grandpa. Her root and the rapidity tear 'em. I am a true-born Irishman, a traveller am I. My home's the road, and no fixed abode. I must travel till I die.
For years, I've known travelling people, and I've always felt sympathy with them because I was born and reared in the slums of Dublin in poverty myself. I think this is a bad word. It's a filthy word to the travellers because it has become a term of abuse, you know. The travelling people are just travellers, they're just poor people who have no homes. This is the thing about it, like, you know. But people, because they feel that they're aliens, that, you know, they don't know that. It's like all prejudice, of course, it's based on that they don't know. This is the thing.
Hunger, hardship, and poverty are the traveller's weary load. Hunger, hardship, and poverty, and the blue tar road.
I think anyone who knows anything about Irish folk songs will understand the indelible mark that the travelling community have left on our native song tradition. But while that's a well-established fact now, I don't know that if in Liam's day it was really that commonplace for a settled person to champion travellers the way he did. From what I understand, Liam grew up in his grandmother's house in Hanbury Lane, and she would open the back garden for travellers to come and camp there.
But I'd be out in the yard, and as soon as I heard a song, I'd stop whatever I was doing and listen, you know. And not making it too obvious, you know, because some of them would stop if they seen you, you know, deliberately listening to them, you know. But I just kind of mooch around and listen to what was going on. I got most of my songs and most of my inspiration for songs from the Travellers.
And sad to say, where'er I go, I seldom see a smile.
Well, the travelling people around Ballyfermot, particularly where I was living, and I'm living now at the moment, that's when I'm waiting for my yacht to be repaired. They were getting harried and harassed, like, by the establishment of all descriptions. You know, they were getting shoved from one party to the other. And at the same time, I made this other one called Blue Tar Road, which I felt was the, you know, it gave a description anyway of what was happening, like, to the people, you know.
And the Blue Tar Road.
Like everywhere else, travellers were being driven off land and told to move on, but Liam just seemed to bridge that gap and found camaraderie and shared understanding. And I think for that reason, he was just way ahead of his time.
No charlatans wear dead man's shoes, and they rattle dead man's bones. sold the very stones. Oh, rise, 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 dark horse on the wind, for in all nation on the earth, more Pharisees you'll find.
You know, his hallmark song was Dark Horse on the Wind, a sort of political ballad calling for a dark horse, some unexpected figure or revolution to rise up and effect change. You just have to listen to the lyrics, you know. The one-eyed baller still reigns king in the nation of the blind. You know, so rich in imagery and mythology. And, you know, here's a man born out of pure poverty, no education, you know, very little, you know, literary training. And we associate this kind of writing with the academy, with the great professors of classics and literature, you know. Liam was anything but that. I don't know. For me, I think if anyone was a dark horse, it was Liam.
Rise, rise, dark horse on the wind, for the one-eyed ballad still reigns king in our nation of the blind. Lovely.
Where will you be, my blue-eyed son? Oh, when your daddy's race is run, when your sire is song as song, where will you be, my little one? Where will you be, my black-haired son? Oh, when your daddy's time has come, when no more the flesh I eat, where will you be, seed of my seed? Ginny Joe, winds will blow, carrying you onward, your seed to sow, while fading dandelions lie on the bank below.
I believe songs, and I've reiterated what I've said many times before, the songs have soul. Till you capture the soul of the song, then you'll never sing it truly, you know. And hopefully if you capture that and it captures you, it comes across to the audience, you know. Well, those who are receptive to that, you know, who haven't been brainwashed that every Irish song should be funny and hilarious and whatever, you know. Some songs demand that you not only listen to them, but you feel them as well, you know. I think that's, for me, that's what songs and singing is about.
I am the tree, leaf, branch and root, whose hand shall gather of my fruit. For flowers must blossom to fade and die, and cast seed on the wind and reason why. Ginny Joe, winds will blow, carrying you onward, your seed to sow. We're fading and the lions lie on the earth below.
Díomh agus fáilte chuig mo video beag an fiddler Tommy Potts. Hello and welcome to my video on Tommy Potts, the Dublin-born fiddle player. I first of all would like to say a huge thank you to Trad Ireland and Culture Ireland for sponsoring this open call for Visionaries. When I first heard Tommy Potts, I don't think I really knew what I was listening to. It was his first LP, The Liffey Banks, that really drew my attention to his playing and started what has led to be a lifelong discovery of his music and a huge interest in doing transcriptions of his tunes to find out what it is exactly he did as a musician on papers that somebody like me or anybody else could try and make sense of it and see if, you know, there were any patterns, any things in particular that he kept going back to, and if so, what were these influences and where did they come from? The first set of tunes I would like to play are two jigs. The first I heard on a YouTube recording. It's called Little Jennifer, and I've yet to find out the source of the tune. There's something inside me, a hunch or an instinct maybe, that thinks that Potts himself maybe could have written this tune, but I can't find any documentation to back that up. But it does seem to match a lot of his musical patterns, and it would make sense, in my head at least, that he wrote it. I have no idea who Jennifer was, or who she is, but the tune is called Little Jennifer, and it's the only place I've heard it being played is on this old LP recording that's been uploaded onto YouTube. The second tune is what Tommy Potts normally played in a set with Apples in Winter. It's The Trip to Sligo, and it's his quite distinctive version. He doesn't do a huge amount with the tune, but the little notes that he changes, harmonic changes, make a massive difference. So yeah, the first set are Little Jennifer and The Trip to Sligo. next set of jigs is one of my favourite sets from Potts. It's his Gareth Barry set, and it's a real feat of absolutely what he's capable of. A lot of his improvisations in this reminds me of the jig from that second partita by Bach in D minor, the M. I mean, I just wonder what would happen if you put the two of them in a room together. I think there'd be some sort of cosmic explosion. But this set of tunes is, for me, just one of the most incredible feats of improvisation from Tommy Potts. It's so beautiful and so subtle and so harmonic, that there's no reason for me to continue talking about it. I'm just going to play it. Before I play the final set of tunes, I would love to say thank you to Seanmháistrí and Tristan Rosenstock at Trad Ireland for launching this 2020 Visionaries initiative, and for Culture Ireland for sponsoring it. it's been a huge privilege for me to get to sit down here at home and play some of Potts's music, which I've been lucky enough to have time to research and study over the last 10 years, and particularly over the last few months when things haven't been as busy as usual. In my opinion, Tommy Potts is a genius. He is an incredible musician with an extraordinary amount of depth and expression in his music. Not to mention a very technically advanced fiddle player and quite a joy to listen to. The last set I'm going to play are three reels: The Star of Munster, The Broken Pledge and Rakish Paddy. The Star of Munster and Rakish Paddy are two tunes that I affiliate quite strongly with Potts, although I don't play exactly his version of Rakish Paddy. Another interesting thing to note, if you're not a Potts fan already, is that he doesn't always follow the traditional structure of tunes. It's not always A-A-B-B or A-B-A-B, as in first part, second part. He can sometimes take liberties and continue one part a little bit longer than the other, which I have done in the previous sets that I played. I want to say thank you for anybody who has taken the time to watch this, and I really hope you enjoyed the music and that you have a newly invested or a new spark of interest in the genius and the fiddle playing of Tommy Potts. Gurmina Mogli.
Hi there, I'm James Carty. I'm a fiddle player. I'm delighted to take part in this initiative by Trad Ireland. And today I'm going to focus on Sligo fiddle legend Paddy Canny. And I'm going to talk a little bit about why I think he was great and what I think made his music special, and his influence on myself as a musician. And I'm going to play a few tunes as well, so I hope you enjoy. And I started off by just giving a little bit of background information on Canny for anyone that might be unfamiliar with his name. He, Sligo man, was born in 1903 near Ballymote, and he emigrated to New York in 1925. Paddy instantly became an integral part of the thriving Irish music scene at that time, and became a very successful performing musician and recording artist. It's often referred to as the golden age of Irish music recording, and there's a fantastic body of work that Canny's left behind that we're all very lucky that we can listen to and take inspiration from today. Canny's often referred to as part of the so-called Holy Trinity of Sligo fiddle players from that era, which were Michael Coleman, James Morrison and Paddy Canny, and I think he definitely deserved to be in that company. Incidentally, when he went over to America first, he lodged with James Morrison, and I think they may have played together, but unfortunately no recordings exist. I might start off by playing a few tunes, and then we might chat more about specific parts of Canny's music. Alright, yeah, that was the great jig that the Geese in the Bog, and Canny did a fantastic version of that I really love. And I grew up in Boyle in County Roscommon, very near the Sligo borders, and
I suppose my earliest memory of Paddy Canny is a picture that was up in our sitting room of the Paddy Canny quartet, which also included Dennis Murphy and banjo player Richard Curran, and I'm not sure who the accordion player was, but it's a great picture. They're all in the fine suits, and Canny is the fiddle like this, and great pose. But so I was probably looking at that before I knew who he was or what music was even. And then I started playing the fiddle when I was about 10 or 11. And a couple of years after that, then I really started to get into the music and started to love it, and discovered the music of the 20s and 30s, of music of Coleman, Morrison and Canny, and I couldn't get enough of it. So, say the Ballymote to Brooklyn album that was brought out by Coleman Heritage Centre, that would have been the first Canny tracks I would have listened to. And I clearly remember just listening to them so much, and learning the tunes, and then trying to copy some of the tricks. And so I might just try and demonstrate some little techniques that Canny used to do that I'm into. And one of them is bow trebles, and just try and demonstrate saying the boys of ballad so they're real. So it goes like this. That would kind of be a standard bow treble. So you'd have the note before, which is D, and then G, and then your treble. 1, 2, 3, 3 notes in the space of 2. So what Canny would do would really overemphasize the note before, stress into it from that D note, miss out the first G almost, and straight into the treble. Does that make any sense? No. Try and demonstrate. It's kind of like... that was the kind of thing. So I love those bow trebles. I think they're to die for. There's just the way to attack them. Fantastic. Another little thing he used to use, and it's not something that was exclusive to Canny, this technique. Loads of fiddle players do it, but he particularly used to great effect all throughout his real playing, and that was where he would bow one note twice, and it creates this effect. We call it a shiver note. I don't know if that makes any sense, but tune he used to play, the Master's Return, and second part goes like this. It's what he would do play the E note twice. Makes no sense in slow motion really, but at speed it added a fantastic bounce to the rhythm, a real lift in it. And he would kind of do it at the beginning of on the strong beat of the phrase is where he usually do it, but it's a real factor. So when you speed it up, it's like this. It's like he would have a way of just getting a tune, taking hold of it, and he would have his own approach to this tune that would be totally his own, you know, and a really intricate and thought out approach to the way he'd bow it, and he would kind of stick to it, you know. He would alter to an extent, but not so much as say Coleman would play things very different each time. Canny would kind of pick the winning formula and stick with it, kind of thing. But when you kind of break it down and see what he's doing, it's really intricate. And one of the tracks I love is the Holy Land, and the Enchanted Lady in the Holy Land. But the way he plays the Holy Land is isn't that beautiful? The way and he does this, he slurs over the strings with one bow, and that's a real Sligo thing, that wavy bow thing, but so difficult to do at speed. I just wanted to share that with you. I think it's beautiful. But so there you go. You'd have all of these little tricks that Ben Lennon said he was very economical with the bow. That was a great quote, and Ben was a great fan of Paddy, and I have to thank David Lennon for keeping me well supplied with Paddy Canny goods over the years. You know, he would send anytime a package came in the post from David Lennon, it was a good day. It was excitement, and I remember it was a bunch of different recordings, and I remember one in particular. It was a collection of almost all of Killoran's recordings, and yeah, that kind of took up the whole one summer and many summers since. So I'm going to play another tune this time. It's a setting of Toss the Feathers, and Killoran had a beautiful way of playing this, and it's one of the best recordings in terms of sound quality that exists. I think it's on YouTube, but yeah, something like this, and I'll have a go. I think Killoran's been a very influential figure in Irish music, and his legacy definitely lives on till today. There's a huge body of work, really substantial body of work that he left behind in terms of recordings, and a nice broad range of material from his solo recordings. There's obviously lots of reels. They were the order of the day, and jigs, and there's also some hornpipes, flings, and also the fact that he played in some bands is quite interesting. But you can hear today at sessions sets of tunes that he would have put together. I'm thinking like the Down the Bhriain, the Gatehouse Maid, and Mullingar Race's Boy in the Hilltop. There's loads of them. Scotsman Over the Border, Tenpenny Bit. There's loads of tunes. And a great friend of ours, fantastic flute player who was a big Killoran fan, is Paddy Canny. And whenever Patsy comes to town or we get to share a few tunes with him, we always have the Paddy Killoran half hour. It's mandatory, and where you do all the Killoran sets, and it's usually the best half hour of the night, you know. So I think that the records, when they came home initially, they were very popular, and I think perhaps his music was more accessible in a way to Coleman's or Morrison's. It had such great spirit about it, not to belittle it in any way, because technically his skill was supreme, but people could maybe just relate to it a little bit easier, whereas they might have had to work a little bit harder with some of the Coleman stuff. And it's interesting, I was talking to Charlie Lennon recently, and Charlie actually met Paddy when he was on one of his trips back to Ireland in 1960, maybe 61, and he spoke of a man with no airs or graces, and who was very obliging and generous, and I think that comes across in his music. No ego, you know. So that's worth taking on board too. And another aspect of Killoran's music is his ability to play with so many different outfits and different musicians of varying style, and despite having a style Killeorn that was so individual, I mean, nobody plays like Paddy Killeorn. He was able to get in, if you know what I mean, with whoever he was playing with, and so that the music was more important than his own personal ego, what the sum of the music he was creating with whoever he was playing with. I mean, obviously when he played with Paddy Sweeney, who, okay, similar style fiddle player, and those recordings are like one fiddle player. It's so together, you know, it's just they're amazing. But there's also recordings existed when he came back to Ireland of him with Willie Clancy on tin whistle. There's a which I came across recently through Port Keen actually, and they play a beautiful version of the Liffey Banks, and you know, really had their own thing going on in it. Similarly, after being interviewed by Seamus Ennis, they play a tune together, and it's the same thing, seamless, you know. And there's also a recording of him with Matt Malloy, would you believe, when Matt was a young budding flute player of I think maybe 10 or 11 years of age, maybe younger, and they play The Humours of Lissadell, and it's nice. Yeah, we're playing a good tune. Great set of Killeorns, Mullingar Races and Boy in the Hilltop. Yeah, the music of Sligo and of Killeorn in particular, it's very, it's influenced me an awful lot. It's very special to me, and I try to incorporate it into my own music. You try and carry the memory of those guys and all they did for the tradition, which is amazing, and you try and carry it on and share it with the next generation, you know. I have a lot of students, and I'm constantly, they're sick to death, I'd say, of me talking about Michael Coleman and Paddy Killeorn, but they're going to have to get used to it. But I'd want to pass on that great music that I was lucky enough to hear from a young age, and I hope that they can get as excited about it as I did when I was growing up, and still do to this day. And that's the thing about Killeorn's music. Whenever I hear it, it's still so fresh and exciting. As you know, you're talking 80 to 100 years since it was recorded, and it still sounds so fresh and as if it's new. So there we go, we leave it there. Again, I'm delighted to take part in this. What a lovely project it's been, going back revisiting some of my favourite music and having another listen, and yeah, sharing it with you. I hope that some of you maybe that haven't heard of Paddy Killeorn before might be compelled to go out and check him out. I'd recommend it, and if you want to get fixed up with some recordings, get in contact and we might do a deal. We'll sort it out, and yeah, that's all from me. Thanks very much.
Hello, my name is Morrison and you're all very welcome to my presentation on the great Leitrim flute player Jack Dolan. Over the next 20 minutes I'm going to be speaking to you about how Jack's music really influenced my flute playing and how it really influenced my approach to music in general. So I'm going to start off by giving you a glimpse into what Jack's music was all about through the reel oboe. So there's the great reel oboe, and Jack did a great job of that tune, and we'll be talking about the reel oboe later on, as well as some of the other tunes that Jack played. But first of all, I just want to speak about Jack and the influence that he had over me as a musician, and talk about maybe some of his background as well. So first of all, he was born in 1928 in Drumkeeran, County Leitrim, the same place that John McKenna was from. And this was one of the things that really struck me, and still to this day strikes me about Dolan's flute playing, is how it's so individual, so unique and full of imagination. And even with the musical shadow that the likes of John McKenna and Tom Morrison would have cast over flute players of that generation, and still do, I suppose, in terms of their influence, that Dolan still remained very loyal to himself and, you know, his expression of the music, which is great and really inspiring, and I suppose still serves as a guide to me, you know, that we should take from what has come before us, but still try to express it in terms that are meaningful to us. And I think that's what Jack Dolan did with great awareness and great ability, great musicianship. So that's a little bit of a background. And I suppose when we're talking about influence, it's very hard not to mention John McTague, who's a Leitrim man, good fiddle player who emigrated to the States, and he played with an awful lot of the greats, Coleman, McKenna. And when he came home, he brought his record collection home with him, and people in the area were able to you know, listen. And he was very generous by all accounts, and all the community were able to come to his house and listen to these records. And no doubt this is where Dolan heard the likes of McKenna and Tom Morrison as well. And Tom Morrison is another character I'll be talking to you about, because he had, based on the repertoire that is recorded, the Dolan's repertoire, that is, there's an awful lot of similarities there, and it's clear to me that Dolan did listen to Morrison quite an awful lot. So McKenna and Morrison, two names I'll be talking to you about in the next 20 minutes or so. So moving on to style, there's three main things really when it comes to Dolan style that really stand out with me anyway, and rhythm is one, ornamentation is another, and then variation. So those three things really stand out to me. The rhythm that Jack Dolan kind of employed wasn't unique to him, but again there was quite an awful lot of there was an unevenness to how he phrased and how he used rhythm in reel playing in particular, and I'll give you a little taste of that now. So just to compare maybe something that isn't as uneven, something more even would be like, and something less even, and you know, it's only slightly, it kind of creates this push and pull effect, and it's really, really nice and adds to the music. So there's the reel bogey again. Okay, so that's hopefully that differentiation is somewhat clear there. In terms of ornaments, what's really nice is there's lovely little subtle ornaments that Jack uses, and I really think they add an awful lot to the phrases. Again, really subtle, but it's the, you know, less is, this is a great example of less is more when it comes to music. So he employs some cuts that kind of, they're kind of elongated cuts, and they kind of function more, they're closer to triplets, I suppose, but they're not quite there, somewhere between cuts and triplets. So an example of that would be something like, let me think, so the Traveller, for example. So so not quite cuts, not quite triplets, somewhere in between, and I think that's a really nice way to vary a phrase, and he did that quite an awful lot, and that's something that I'll be drawing your attention to in the different tunes that we cover. He uses an awful lot of bounces and kind of, not quite trills, but bounces in tunes, and in the that McKenna tune, Touch Me If You Dare, or no, the one that followed that, the Flowers of Red Hill. An awful lot of those bounces there, and that really kind of, again, less is more, really quite insignificant in that it takes such a short amount of time to do it, but it really adds an awful lot to the interpretation of the tune. And then he, stylistic feature, I suppose, more than an ornament, the use of a C sharp as opposed to C natural in G major tunes, and again, not unique to Dolan. McKenna and Morrison employed this as well, and other musicians too, but it's where Dolan placed these C sharps, really, really effective. And one tune that he did do this in was The Traveller, and this is a great Patrick J. Cawley tune. I think great fiddle player, and he would have recorded this in the 30s. So I'll give this a go, and hopefully be able to catch some of those elements that I covered there. Especially in that second part, we have the really, really nice take on that tune. Now, just to move on to variations, I suppose that's the another part of Dolan's style that really jumps out at me. Really well thought out variations. At times, very subtle, and then other times not so subtle, but the imagination really comes through here, and I think it's really, really impressive. So one tune, I'll go back to the Reel of Bogey again, because that I think that's a great example. So we have the first part, third bar, something very small, really, really effective though, the two A's and the two E's coming together and cutting that E and really leaning into that second one. But as I said before, it's not quite a cut and it's not quite a triplet, it's somewhere in between. Really, really nice and just really stylish, and it gives great flair to it. And he goes up then in the second part, or the second phrase of the first part. Really, really nice change there. And then the second part then, I'm going to play the full tune here now for you, and then you'll see the second part where the imagination really comes through. So really quite intricate stuff going on there in the second part, and that really kind of struck me as, wow, like really well thought out. And just, I'll play it one more time for you there, just so you can get a better idea. So really original, really unusual take on it, and I really kind of enjoyed that, and that kind of I suppose it got me thinking about how you can phrase tunes kind of differently. So along that same line, the same line as the variations, the Dunmore Lasses, great Tom Morrison tune that Dolan did a great job of, and I'm going to play it from start to finish there, and just to pay close attention if you can to the lovely phrase there that he puts in. And in the second part, there's an awful lot of small little differences. So that phrase there doesn't exist in Dolan's version. It's going up to that A. I find that's really, really nice. Again, less is more. The same way that, you know, Joe Ban or Michael Russell would have included really very small, very short variations. It just completely changes the tone of the tune. So what I mentioned earlier is that, you know, Dolan kind of took from these sources, McKenna, Morrison and others, put his own expression through the tune, and I want to try to to do the same here with the Dunmore Lasses. Short little rendition of the Dunmore Lasses there. Now I'm going to move on now to another tune that he really expressed in his own very individual way, and that's the concert reel. So it's a great favourite of mine, and I think his variations are really just inspired and really really tastefully placed. So even when we were talking about the stylistic features, the bounces and the just the rhythm as well, I think they really come to light here in this version of the concert reel. So that really injects a serious amount of power into the playing, and really, really nice. And then the second part, the end of that second part is lovely. It speeds back up to the second octave, which is a really lovely way to finish that second part. So moving right, I know we were speaking about Tom Morrison. I'd like to move in the direction of McKenna now, back to his home turf of Drumkeeran. So we don't actually know if McKenna met Dolan when they were in America, but you know, it's very possible in August 1938 when McKenna was home in Leitrim that they did meet, and you can imagine how exciting that must have been for somebody like Jack Dolan, who made such a detailed study of McKenna's playing. So two tunes that McKenna played were Back in the Garden and The Flowers of Red Hill, and these tunes were really, I suppose, expressed really individualistically with Jack Dolan, and I'm going to give them a go now. And it's worth kind of noting there in the first part of Touch Me If You Dare or Back in the Garden, you know, all the different variations, you know, going to the D and an awful lot of the low D and the E, high E in the first part. It's a lovely twist, and that kind of reoccurs an awful lot. And then The Flowers of Red Hill, it's kind of like a homage to McKenna, because there's not a whole pile that changes, but if you were to compare the two recordings together, there's an awful lot of difference in the rhythm. You know, McKenna is very punchy, and in Touch Me, or in The Flowers of Red Hill, it's not so much, it's more legato, it's a smoother kind of a rhythm. So I'll give these two a go together. I'll just play them once each so that you get an idea. There's Touch Me If You Dare and The Flowers of Red Hill, two great McKenna tunes. So we're going to go back to Tom Morrison now, and there's three more reels that I'd like to speak to you about. And the first one of these is Miss Thornton's great tune that Tom Morrison played and did a great job of it, and so did Dolan. But Dolan, again, very similar to the approach with McKenna. The rhythm is far less punchy, and you know the pulsing in Tom Morrison's playing isn't as evident here. So it's more in the fact that the C sharps really nice, and that's what that happens in Morrison's version as well. But the rhythm is more. It's just not as pulsy and not as strong. But again, plenty of it, but just very different. So here's Miss Thornton's reel. There's Miss Thornton's reel, and I love that the C sharps in that tune really, they stand out, and it really just creates a lovely tension that's and it doesn't have to be resolved. I think it's just a really nice way of playing that tune. So before I move on to the last two tunes, I just want to speak about, I suppose, Jack spent some time in America. He emigrated there, and he was actually drafted into the American Army, so quite an interesting life that he led. He even ended up fighting in the Korean War in the 50s, and then in the 60s he moved back to Leitrim, and then he spent an awful lot of time between Dublin and London, where he kind of really did leave his mark on the music scene there, and people were very impressed by all accounts by his flute playing. So I suppose that it really just speaks to his musicality, his ability as a flute player and as a musician in general. So before I finish up, I'd just like to say a big thank you to Bhriain, who very generously gave an awful lot of information, shared an awful lot of his thoughts and information about Jack Dolan. So thanks very much, Sean. And I'm going to finish up with two reels, I suppose, that come from the Tom Morrison repertoire. The first is Connacht reel, and the second one is the Shepherd's reel. So just to bring everything together at the end of this presentation, just to there's the elements of, there's the style, there's the rhythm, there's the ornaments, there's the variations, and they all kind of come in together, these two reels. So thanks a million, hope you enjoy this Song of Old.
Bradley, traditional Irish fiddle player and violin maker, based in Hollywood, County Wicklow, here in Ireland. Sometimes when we hear the sound of a fiddle, we might say it has a very true ring to it. You could say the same of a fiddle player's music. Many years ago, aged about 13 or 14, I heard some fantastic fiddle playing on a reel-to-reel tape recorder in my family home in Bessbrook, County Armagh. It seemed to me like I was hearing a deluge of bright and wild musical forms being played by an unseen spirit fiddle player who was telling stories with the bow and conversing with the tune. Cool Carty bin Díreach a Bhriain, cool Tommy Peoples. It was good, sweet, straight music, the music of Tommy Peoples, the music that you are listening to now. Tommy made many albums in his lifetime. This one is called The High Part of the Road, and it features the well-known singer-songwriter and guitarist Paul Brady, who was Tommy's favourite accompanist. After Tommy won the Gradam Ceol for his contribution of a lifetime to Irish traditional music, I complimented his playing on that occasion, and he said, well, with Brady behind you, you'd have to play. So this album is the synthesis of two great musicians coming together in their youthful prime. Here we hear Tommy playing the pinch of snuff, bringing that particular brand of wildness to Irish music that never was there before. I'm going to knock the music off now and play some of the music I learned from Tommy and show to you how it has influenced me. On that particular album, issued in 1976, there was a reel called the flogging reel. Some of Tommy's techniques were the use of the triplet, which he developed to a finer art because his triplet was very unique and required technique that really only Tommy and a few other people actually ever mastered. I never really attempted this, but I was influenced by this. I never wanted to duplicate Tommy's triplet. It was too personal to him for me to get involved with. But I'll play the flogging reel and you'll hear my way of playing a similar type triplet. Flogging reel learned many years ago from Tommy's playing. Other techniques that Tommy used were elongating notes to cover entire phrases. This created a space within the tune, and also the bending of notes like you hear pipers doing on the chanter. And this sort of elastic, what would you say, elasticity that this added to the tune, to the music, created further space, and also a background on which he could intersperse these percussive techniques of the cran, of his particular succinct role that he played, and of the triplet which I've just shown you. So we look at an earlier recording that Tommy was issued back in the early 70s or the late 60s, before the High Part of the Road. It was issued by Coldest Coultry Erin the National Traditional Musicians Association, and it was called An Exciting Session with One of Ireland's Leading Fiddlers. A very long title, but it really summed up what the album was about. Pointed delivery of succinct, clean playing, minimal, what would you say, embellishments really. But notable was the double stop, his use of the double stops, like playing 2-note chords with either 2 or 1 fingers on the strings. And again, that triplet and the succinct roll, and then occasional improvisation with the melody. So I'll play the tune as I play it now, maybe 40 years after I learnt it from that album, among many other tunes that I learnt from the same album. So this is called Dr. O'Neill's Jig. Dr. O'Neill's Jig there, which I learned from Tommy's playing many years ago. We look now at another recording that came out in between his first album and The High Part of the Road. It's this album here. It was released by the Topic label under a different title on a vinyl record format. It was called at that time A Traditional Experience with Tommy Peoples, and that was the original format in which I had it. There were many beautiful reels, jigs and hornpipes on that album, and it was recorded very simply with no real studio input, only a sort of a room sound, which was quite echoey, and I actually liked it. Tommy's playing was very succinct and I would say sparse in embellishment. He did make a few little variations here and there, but Tommy could make a small change to a tune and turn it on its head. That was the quality of his musicianship. On the album with him were Sean Conjohnny, the guitar player from Carrick and Donegal, and also Paddy Mercier, the bodhrán player from the Chieftains, but they only appeared on a few tracks. Tommy played solo throughout. One tune that comes across the years to my mind from that album is a beautiful little mazurka that he played, and which I presume he got from the sessions he went to in Letterkenny, where he would have heard the playing of the Campbell brothers and of Danny Meehan. He would have also heard Johnny Doherty playing occasionally. So perhaps that would have been the source of this tune, or he could have got it in his own East Donegal Lagan Valley. So I'm going to play you now this beautiful little mazurka which I got from Tommy's playing. beautiful little tune. I suppose Tommy's playing was of such a high technical standard that you would never expected to hear a mistake from a master fiddle player like him, and indeed you never really did. But there were some tiny little glitches that occurred occasionally, and these didn't seem to detract from his playing. They seemed to add character and credibility, in the sense of one just got the sense that it was a very honest approach to playing. And Tommy was not a superficial character. He was a very profound thinker, and the surface of the tune didn't really matter so much to him, in a sense, although he was a fantastic technician and deliverer of the goods. It was more the internal life of the tune that Tommy was concerned with, and he reached right into the tune. I suppose it was a sort of search for the meaning of the tune in some way, and he brought the tune to sometimes quite vulnerable and dangerous places of, difficult resolution through his his improvisations, and he explored the tunes thoroughly in that way. And this was what drew people to his playing, was this, a sense of struggle. It wasn't a struggle to play, that was out of the question. It was more like a philosophical struggle seemed to be happening, and it wasn't an intentional projection of this. It was just, there was a sense of the struggle of life and death, of perfection and imperfection, of the sublime and the human, that one couldn't help but sense when you heard Tommy playing. It was so human and so brilliant at the same time. So there was a wholeness about his playing, and this was really what appealed to people about his playing. It wasn't just a flashy playing. I'm going to show you another album from a later period. I'm not going to show you all Tommy's albums, obviously, but this one here came in around about the 1980 or so, and it marked a beautiful place in Tommy's playing development, because it was a very settled place, and a very it was just a very great sense of equilibrium in his playing, and a great clarity and contentment in that playing on that album, The Iron Man. I met him around that time. It was my first time to meet him, aged about 14 or 15, and I was introduced to him, and someone said, "Oh, Tommy, this young lad is mad about your playing. He's a great fan of yours." And Tommy asked me who was my favourite player, as an aside, and I was so under the spotlight of my hero that I went to bits, and I said, Tommy Potts, and he smiled a wry smile, and he was interested that a young lad would have an interest in the playing of Tommy Potts. But Tommy Potts was one of my favourite players, but I couldn't look Tommy in the face and say, "You're my favourite player." I just couldn't do that. So that was my first meeting with Tommy. A great friend of Tommy's was the fiddle player Sean Keane of the Chieftains, and their playing could be paralleled in many ways. They both were attacking players, and both of them spoke the language of the pipes at times in their music, and used the cran from the ornamentation from piping. This is an example of a cran. More so, Sean Keane exploited that theme of piping related music in his fiddle playing, especially on the album Gusty's Frolics. And that was interestingly where I learned one of Tommy's great compositions, the Green Fields of Glentown, which celebrates Tommy's place of birth near St Johnson in County Donegal. But it was interesting that I learned it from Sean Keane, who probably was the first person to record a tune that Tommy composed. So I play that tune for you now, as I more or less as I learned it from Sean Keane's playing around 40 odd years ago. Fields of Glentown, celebrating Tommy's place of birth, a significant contribution to the Irish fiddle tradition. I'm going to play a tune in memory of Tommy. It was a composition of James Scott Skinner's, and it was a tune that Tommy made well known in Ireland. It's called Hector the Hero. Tommy passed away only 2 years ago. I'm playing a fiddle that I made myself. Behind me you see there are some more fiddles coming on. My Facebook page is Paul Bradley Violin Maker, and my YouTube channel is Irish Violin Maker. So I'll play a Hector the Hero in memory of Tommy. Thanks for listening. Bye.